What's up, YouTube? You checking out the Frequent Flyer, and this is my quick review of the DYS ELF Brushless Micro Quadcopter, and this is it right here. And this thing is a pretty nice model. I like what they have done. I really like this for what it's supposed to be. In my opinion, I think that this is supposed to be a brushless tiny whoop, and that's what it flies like in angle mode. And most of the times when you're flying a tiny whoop indoors, you're going to be using angle mode. Acro mode is mainly used for more agility, for more speed and more control in a wide area. You can't really fly acro usually in a small area unless your skills are just that impeccable. But as far as I know, most people are flying tiny whoops indoors in angle mode. It comes with this transmitter, by the way, and we'll get to the transmitter later. But one thing that I was going to say involves the transmitter. Flying this in acro mode, the transmitter doesn't have enough resolution on the sticks to really get down in acro mode, or you can't really control it that well in acro mode because of the resolution on those sticks there. So there's like dead spots near the beginning of the input on the sticks, both sides in either direction. And it's very important. I think hobby grade transmitters are very important, or should I say hobby grade gimbals are very important with that resolution to control brushless models, because it's very hard to fly a brushless model with a toy grade transmitter with not enough resolution, because you get too much input, and these motors are very powerful. You know, you can't really regulate your input that well. So when I first tried this, I thought these gimbals were pretty nice. I overlooked the fact that they're actually toy grade gimbals on here, and so I switched it in acro when I was flying it outdoors, and it pissed me off, man, because I flipped over and it wasn't enough resolution. So you get to flipping too fast or whatnot, you know, giving too much input when you're trying to make little subtle inputs to finish your flip. And it ended up flipping all the way over, and it hit the ground. I didn't crack it or anything, but it just scratched up the canopy a little tiny bit. You guys know red is my favorite color. And that's one of my peeves too, to have scratches and stuff on my models that I really like. And so this canopy has a little bit of a scratch on it, and that happened my first flight, my first try of it outdoors in acro. It hit the ground. Good thing I wasn't too high. I wasn't that high up. I was about 3 feet up, and you guys know I fly over concrete, and so I can say that this canopy seems to be somewhat durable. But it hit the canopy. I had to hurry up and stop the motors from spinning and get it, and it was scratched up a little. Not enough resolution on the sticks. But anyhow, this thing does fly in acro. It is on the FR Sky protocol, so you can bind it to your Tyrannus, and I do have a Tyrannus. So when you fly this thing with a Tyrannus, you get all the resolution you need, and you can fly acro mode nice and flip it and do a lot of stunts and all with it. But this thing isn't as maneuverable as many of the other brushless micro quadcopters that don't have ducts on them, like this thing here. This is the AR Fun Pro 95. Nothing in comparison to, and not even the King Kong 90 GT. It also outmaneuvers this thing, and I think this is slower and sluggish because of the ducted fan design, the tiny whoop design. Now, tiny whoops aren't the best of their class anyhow in maneuverability and all. I'm pretty sure, like, if you put a tiny whoop up against a QX90 or something like that, you know, it wouldn't outperform a QX90 or anything like that, because of the ducted fan design. I think it's made to fly in angle mode. That's where it shines, and it shines in its stability. This thing flies like a brushless tiny whoop. It slows down when you let off the sticks. It doesn't keep the forward movement like most of the brushless micro quadcopters do. So it has tiny whoop flight characteristics, but it's brushless, so it has more power. It's faster than any brushed model. Most brushed models that you might come across. It's not slow by any means, but it's just not as fast as the other brushless micro quadcopters in its class, not as maneuverable. The props are a little bit smaller. I think these are 1535 props or something around there, maybe 17. I know they're shorter than the 1935 and the 2035 props, 5-bladed props that the other competitors in its class has. But it's a nice flyer, and this thing does have, well, it seems pretty durable. I have seen people crash it and crack these and stuff like that, but I don't crash my models that hard. I guess, well, most of the times I don't crash them that hard. And I think it's because I've gotten used to flying out on concrete. And so on the concrete, you develop certain, I want to say, reflexes on certain things. Like when I see that I'm about to crash or something, I fully embrace it. So most of the times I see my models before I know when I'm about to crash, and I just cut throttle right then and there. You know, the moment that I know I'm going to crash, I'll cut throttle maybe a second or two before then to take some of the mustard off this thing, you know, off the impact. And so most of the times when I crash, they don't be that bad, unless I'm doing like a power loop or something like that and I crash. I guess those are my hardest crashes with these micro brushless quadcopters. But this, for the most part, this thing seems pretty durable. I have crashed it numerous of times, not a whole lot, but I have crashed it more than once, and really no sign of any damage to this thing except for that annoyance, these annoying scratches on the top there that I got from trying to fly an acro with this thing. So, oh, and this thing has two major flaws, I think. Well, one might be just a little pet peeve of mine, I guess. And that was the connector, the power connector on it, and the power lead on the battery. It's a proprietary connection. Man, I don't even have it anymore. I was so annoyed by it that I immediately modded it. I apologized in the first video that I did with this thing, but I changed it, swapped it out for a JST connection. And so I did the same thing for the battery. So if you buy this model, it's not going to come with a JST. You might have to mod it to get a new connection, because I don't think using an adapter, I think that would limit the power that's coming. It would affect the power that's coming through it. And so, yeah, you're going to be stuck with buying batteries from DYS. These, the connector that it had on it. It looks sort of like this, but it's a little different. So that's one major thing that I didn't like about it. Now, the main major flaw that I feel that it has is in its FPV system, the VTX system. The antenna is fixed underneath here. Let me see if I can get something to point with. If you guys can see, right down in here, that's the VTX antenna there. And it's made to go under here. It's fitted right underneath there. And so it's sandwiched between the battery and the flight controller when you're flying around. And so this thing gets horrible reception. I have seen people get a little better FPV reception than I get, but my reception is horrible. Whenever this thing gets behind a few leaves or anything, it starts to flicker and break up all the time. If I get a little distance away from myself, it starts to fuzz it. It even goes to blue screen. I don't know what that's about, but it does go to blue screen sometimes. It breaks up really bad when I fly a little distance away from it. So, well, away from myself. And so this thing has bad reception, a very short range of FPV. So that's no fun. I can't even fly it throughout my home. And that's another thing, it's too loud. It's very loud. Usually these 5-bladed props make they're very quiet on these high kV motors. These are 10,000 kV motors here. They're black. They look awesome. There. Usually when you fit these 10,000 kV motors, and these are 1102 motors, I believe, Yes, they're 1102. I'm looking at it right here. It's very tiny there. 1102, 10,000 kV. Usually when you fit these with these 5-bladed props, it becomes very quiet. Not the case at all with these. I don't know if cutting them, making them shorter messes that up for this, but this thing is pretty loud. Too loud for indoors. That's a thing that I don't like about it. When you're flying it indoors, it's pretty loud. But other than that, this thing flies great. So I plan on modding this antenna here. I'm going to have to make it longer because it's so short you can't even remove it from here and bring it out the top or anything, or even hang it down because it's so short. The end of the wire on it is very short. If you guys can see there, that's about all the length that it has on it. So I'm going to have to desolder this one and put a whole new one on there, find a long one, and maybe hang it down the bottom, or maybe somehow try to bring it up through the canopy. But it seems like it's going to be a lot, and that's about it. But it's a nice flying model though. And this transmitter here, now this transmitter, like as I was saying, the resolution isn't good enough for acro on a brushless model, and so that's the problem that I have with this transmitter. Other than that, it flies really nice in angle mode, which is what I think most people would be after when they're trying to fly a tiny whoop style quad. If you're buying this thinking that it's going to be very maneuverable because it's brushless and it's going to be up to par with maybe the 90 GT or anything like that, that's not true. This is not the model for you. This is for those who want a brushless tiny whoop and are used to flying a tiny whoop and want their brushless model to fly the same way this thing does. And this transmitter has no problem with angle mode. I think it's good enough for angle mode. Actually, this is one of the better of the toy grade transmitters. I think this is better than any toy grade transmitter. It has all the switches you need up here. So it has 4 auxiliary switches. They're already set up. It is running OpenTX, I think. I think I heard that from someone. And it, for the most part, it looks like it might be. There's a version in there, a version number that tells you that, but it doesn't look like the Tyrannus. But I'm thinking that's because of this small, tiny screen. They're not really working with much here. So you can do some changing on the options there. You do have some options for mixing and reversing channels and stuff like that. All the trim buttons and everything work. And so this is a pretty decent transmitter. You get 4 AA batteries, but this thing is just not good enough for acro, in my opinion. Now, there is a little mount here. I'm guessing if you had a screw mount holder for a FPV monitor, you can mount that on there. Or maybe they're coming out with something, but right as of now, I haven't seen anything. But that's it. You can check out my unboxing to see everything that this thing comes with. And that's my quick review of the DYS ELF. Thanks for watching.